Hey Eagle fans, it's EaglefanKarl. This is going to be my reaction video to that just terrible game against the Seattle Seahawks. And I don't even know where to start with this thing. Forget the stats, throw the stats out. Don't even bother looking at them. You look at Carson Wentz's stats, they look okay. But that really masks the fact that a lot of those yards were garbage yards in the fourth quarter. If you look at our wide receiving core, their yards look okay. But that doesn't change the fact that going into the fourth quarter, Russell Wilson had more receiving yards combined than our whole wide receiving core. So that's combined, not individually. Combined, our wide receivers had fewer receiving yards going into the fourth quarter than Russell Wilson did on his own. And he's their quarterback. So this is just beyond ridiculous how bad this has gotten. And of course, public enemy number one on that is Nelson Agholor. And listen, I just got to talk about him for a little bit because look at me. I've got gator arms and I have as many receiving yards as Nelson Agholor had yesterday. That's how crazy that game was. That's how poorly he's playing right now. Over the last 2 weeks, he's only got 7 more receiving yards than I do. And it's just completely unforgivable at this point. I know what he said after the game, and I appreciated the fact that he owned up to the fact that he's not playing well, as opposed to what he did a couple weeks back where he tried to deflect all the criticism and act like there was no problem. At least he owned up to it, but the simple fact of the matter is he is playing lousy football right now. They need to cut him, or they need to sit him, or do something to get his head on straight, because right now he is not playing well, and he's hurting the team. At this point, bringing Paul Turner up from the practice squad would be a better option. He's certainly can't be any worse than what Nelson Agholor has done over the last 2 weeks, and maybe he can actually hold on to a freaking football. The way that Agholor is playing right now is just ridiculous. For a first-round draft pick, over the last 2 years, he has had absolutely zero in terms of contributions. And it just, the way it's gone right now, it's just ridiculous how poorly he's playing. And at this point, I'm just sick of him. I don't want to see him anymore. I just want to be done with him. Making matters worse through all this is, of course, the fact that the Cowboys, Giants, and Redskins all won yesterday. So we feel another game back in the race for whatever we're in the race for at this point. There's still a possibility, I guess, we can get to a wild card, but the division is completely gone. And at this point, it's absolutely ridiculous to be thinking about playoffs. I feel like the old Jim Mora playoffs. It's just, forget that. We need to figure out how we're actually going to be able to play decent football. Now, take a step back. I know it was against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. They're a really good team. Very well could be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. You're playing them in a place where they hardly ever lose against one of the toughest crowds in terms of crowd noise that you're going to find. But that does not excuse the lack of effort that we saw yesterday. And some of that's on the defensive side of the football. The defense played brutal yesterday. Some of the tackling was horrible. Some of the angles they took on the first big rushing touchdown. Jalen Mills takes a horrible angle at the running back and lets him get outside. Some of the ways we were rushing at Russell Wilson, letting him get outside and not keeping contained is just inexcusable against a quarterback like that. So this is not just a problem with our offense. This is a problem with our defense as well. Let me put it to you this way. When it was in the third quarter and we were down 9 points, that's pretty close of a game. It's a 2-possession game, but it's still relatively close. You get 1 touchdown coming out of halftime, and you're only down 2 points. I never felt like we had a chance in that game going into the second half. I really didn't. It never felt close, even when it was only a 9-point game. And it just goes to show that this team is clearly not in the class of some of the better teams in the NFL. They've got a long way to go. I know that the defense was talking about how great they've been playing. They played brutal yesterday. The offense, they've been saying about, how the offensive line has been playing well, especially with Lane Johnson being out. They played horribly yesterday. Our wide receivers, of course, suck anyway, and they just lived up to that expectation. And now Darren Sproles and Ryan Matthews are hurt. So it's just downhill, downhill, downhill. And I just don't know where we go from here. The only advantage we've got is that 4 of our last 6 games are at home, and we've been playing better at home. We get the Packers at home next week, and the Packers are playing horrible football right now, so maybe that's what we need to get back on the right track. But at this point, this team really needs to take a step back and really look at where they are, do some soul searching, because it's getting absolutely ridiculous at this point how poorly this team played yesterday and how lack of effort and heart that they really showed. The talent I can forgive. If you're not good enough, I can forgive that, because that's not really anything that you can do anything about if you're just not good enough. But if you're not showing the effort, if you're not showing the heart and the passion that we want, then forget it. I don't want you anymore. And really right now, when it comes down to it, all my anger right now is focused on Nelson Agholor. I tried to get #cut Agholor trending on Twitter yesterday, how upset I was by the two stupid back-to-back boneheaded plays he makes. So forget about even the fact that he had no catches. Even if he would have had a catch in the fourth quarter for 50 yards, I still wouldn't forgive the fact of how boneheaded the plays were that he made in the second quarter. And the fact is, he talks about, oh, he's in his head and all that kind of stuff. We had a wide receiver back a couple years ago talk about losing concentration. And you just can't do that. You're being paid millions of dollars to do that, to be on the field, keep your head in the game, and execute the offense. And not lining up on the line of scrimmage is just stupid. It's a mental mistake that cannot be forgiven. And at this point, I am just getting a little fed up of this guy, and that's why I don't want to see him around anymore. Like I said, maybe they just sit him for a week and let him just sort of sit back and observe the game or something, but I think he just needs to take a break right now, because the kid just is not performing well. And the shame of it is, he does have some talent, but right now he's not playing like it. And for that reason, I'm just done with him. I'm done with him. I want him gone. So that's that. I don't know what else to say on this game. It's just like I said, don't even bother looking at the stats on this game. It's just brutal. Forget it. Don't even worry about it. The statistics mean nothing in a game like this. Just so put them aside and let's move on. Like I said, we've got the Packers coming up. Their defense has been playing horribly of late, so maybe our offense can get back on the right track against them. Now, our offense is just playing horribly, and maybe they need a pick-me-up kind of game that's going to make them feel good about themselves, because after yesterday's game, I don't know how you could feel any sort of pride in the way you played in that game. So that's my rant. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Am I wrong? Should we be giving Nelson Agholor a shot on this thing? Am I crazy for thinking Paul Turner would be a good option? Leave your comments below. We're coming up on the Thanksgiving week, which sort of is a milestone marker for me, because it's a year now that I've been doing these vlogs. It started after the Thanksgiving last week, when I went on a bit of a rant about Chip Kelly and how poorly he was coaching. And I started at that point is when I was done with him, and I wanted the hashtag fire Chip. Well, it's kind of ironic that we're a year later and now I'm in the same position, but it's a different person, and this time it's Nelson Agholor. So hashtag #cut Agholor, and let's move on. So leave your comments below. I'll go ahead and check in next weekend before the Packers game, let you know what I think. Till then, fly Eagles fly.